Let's take a look at the game Sky Traders that I just picked up a used copy of. My wife and I played this recently for the first time, a two-player game. We gave up about halfway through. I couldn't post her impressions of it because I'm currently banned again for using the word fanboy. You can see how fucking restrictive BGG is. Anyway, yeah. I guess we gave up because I got a rather large lead and it looked like it was going to take forever. Now, I'm going to play the rules as written as opposed to the errata that are out. I took a look at the errata and in some ways I understand why they were made because the game does not appeal to Eurogamers the way it is. It has a little bit too much luck and it's too long. So they made a couple of fixes for that that maybe I'll catch as I run through the rules. It's a very short errata, but the main reason I don't want to play it is one of the things they changed is I believe the botsman, his price goes up, and then they changed where you can put the gunner and the thing. Basically, you have to modify the cards to make all this work, and I just don't buy into it. I'm not going to mark up my cards to play the game, and I'm not going to put little stickers on them or anything like that, and I don't want to try to remember it. So given that flaw, and I would do it if it wasn't such a pretty game, but when you start making components a major part of the game, it becomes impossible to mark them up, right? Given that factor, well, you're stuck with the game as written as far as I'm concerned, or else degrading the value of the game by taking a Sharpie to the cards. They also did some other little changes having to do with initial setup, and all of them make kind of sense, and some of the other factors that reduce some of the luck factor that make it more a game based on trading. But I don't think removing any of those has any huge effect on play, except that certain strategies become, sort of dominant at certain times. They're not absolutely so, and you'll see as we play what I'm talking about. So the board's not completely set up yet because part of the game is actually setting up the board, and you deal out these suckers to begin with, and I'll go over what that is. There's a lot of flavor text in here. I love historical discussion and such not, but give me tons and tons of flavor text to a game that doesn't really need it. Okay, whatever. It doesn't really help much. If it really, really helped inform the game, it would be great, but this is essentially not quite a Euro. It certainly doesn't have Euro-ish design elements to it. It feels like Euro Ameritrash, but as a trading game. Okay. And we've got our different components, and of course, my wife loved the little figures. They're very interesting, and they're going to match they look like white blurs there, but they're going to match the characters who are assigned to the particular ships. And your goal in this game is essentially, although there's some tie-breaking issues, to move from the 0 marker on this track up to the 50, and you do that by paying. And these are the costs, and these would also have to be marked up. They've been changed to shorten the game in the errata. I may quit early if it becomes obvious somebody has just reached dominating position in the game, but I don't know if that's possible in a 5-player game in the same way that it is in a 2-player game. Other people have covered this, so I'm not gonna try to be as polished as maybe I would in some cases. So we've done a lot of the setup, and okay, each player is going to be able to pick a ship before we actually build the board, I guess. No, building the board is first. Yeah, building the board is first. So building the board is going to consist of the person with the volcano is going to get the first player card. This thing goes about halfway down the deck. Can't be sure exactly where, but somewhere deep in the middle. That's got, as far as I know, one special purpose, which is that you can buy off wanted tokens when you have it. And you probably won't have gotten them. So this guy's going to be the first player for the first turn. I'm going to rotate counterclockwise as I usually do throughout the play, and just so that doesn't confuse you when you get to the playthrough. After the board's created, and that's going to be created by the first person putting the volcano in the middle, and then each of these brown things, someone can play a red thing coming off of that. For example, like this. And then the next player would get to either play a brown thing off of one of these or a red off of one of these, continuing always a different color. There is a restriction. These are little telegates or something like that. They can't be within 5 of another telegate, and I think they can't be within 1 of the volcano, if I recall correctly. I, of course, screwed that up the first time I played almost instantly. Okay, and we've set up the opening commodities, which all start at the leftmost marker. The errata puts the black market grog at the highest value instead, so that nobody can make a killing off grog on the first turn. I think that's more of a problem in a 2-player game than in a 5-player game, to tell you the truth. We'll see why. This is going to be kind of a random events deck. Everybody draws one of these at the beginning of each turn. This is a damage deck. Every time you take damage in combat, you're going to take one of these and you'll put it over here. On the other side, it's going to have a cost. I'll show a late one. I'll show the top one and put it. Crap. And these were worse when they were slipped. So it has a cost to repair it on the other side, which is just when you go into a port, you're allowed to pay that cost as part of your trading opportunities. Then we'll each pick our own fleet, and we get a pile of stuff. A dude, the dice matching the color of the ship that we get, a bunch of money, $20, a Skyman. Skymen are kind of weird. They add 1 to your combat total. And so each of these cards have a number of pieces of information on them. They have a special ability, they have a cost, and then they have what holds you can put them in. The Boatswain is particularly interesting. The reason they raised his price is because you can kind of avoid all random events if you have them. Well, more or less. Basically, you discard him to get rid of the card that you just drew, and that pretty much has that effect. At $10, he's really a deal, and you can sell him back for $5, so maybe that works too. Okay. Then each player is going to roll randomly and see which city they show up on. So it's not like you're setting up the board really has a hell of a lot of effect. It just creates a slightly, not completely random, but a slightly different geography to move over. Okay, your turn is pretty simple. And unfortunately, this and this, while they're on the back of the rule book, are not presented to you in any additional play aids, and that's kind of a negative, I would say. There would be room on these ships if a little less space was spent on graphics or something else to give some important aspects like the order of play or this. With only 1 copy of that, that makes this a little skimpy, especially since this is a high production quality game, right? You know? You kind of hope that player aids would be more effective. Okay, so the first thing you do in your turn is you're going to draw one of these cards and you read it and it takes effect. And it might mean something attacks you, it might mean bad luck, it might mean good luck. Then you're allowed to sail your sky ship. And when you sail your sky ship, you need one of these little markers, and I've probably got the wrong color and the wrong dude. You start off with 10 phlogiston, and you're going to pay to move. You can move up to 5 spaces, just 1 space to another if they're connected, like this. So you can move 1, 2, and then you'd look up on this chart and see that costs you 2. Now it's fine up to 3. It costs you the number of spaces, but then it starts increasing. special aspect of movement, this little thing is kind of like a hyper jump. If you move on to this, you can freely make your next move to here without paying any phlogiston. That's your magic stuff that makes your ship fly, your magic dust. Then you're allowed to dump cargo and or crew. And basically you just push them overboard wherever you are. The only thing that's a problem here is if you happen to have, and these are little barrels of your cargo, if you happen to have sludge on board, we'll explain sludge in a little bit, and you dump that in a city, you get a wanted token. You've just committed an illegal act. And that wanted token makes certain ships more capable of attacking you out of the random deck, and it also makes players able to attack you without suffering from the piracy effect. Piracy means if they attack you, they'll get one of these. Okay. In particular, if you dump sludge here, you're going to get more money. The errata have kind of made that space useless. They give you $1 essentially for each sludge you drop. The original rules, which I'm going to be playing with, you roll a die and you multiply that by your sludge. Now, that's the level of randomness that Eurogamers aren't going to like, but I prefer it. So I look at the Eurification of the game, the errata, as really largely a variant. I don't think there's anything terribly broken, although sludge becomes more valuable in the original game, and also there's a few other things that it's more valuable to haul black market goods in the original game as well, mainly because this guy's cheaper. Then the next thing you're going to be able to do is you have a special action you can do. Now there's 4 special actions available. The first one's trade. You can only do that in a city. That's rather complex. It consists of a lot of different subparts, so I'll go back to that in a little while. But if you're in a city, you can do that as an action. You can collect minerals. Now in the errata, you can do this anywhere. In the core game, you can only do it in a city. I think it would be kind of cool if you could only do it outside of a city, actually. But what it basically is you roll a pair of dice, and you get that many of the class 1 good, which is the minerals, and you get those barrels, and you're going to be able to load them on your ship. Your ship, each hold can hold either 2 barrels of the same type of good, or a crew member who's slotted for that space. So like this guy can only go in space 1, this guy can go in 4, 5, or 6. Well, that's really it. There's a hull upgrade here which can hold 4 of the same type of cargo there, but it's got to be the same type of cargo. And if you have the hull upgrade, you can't put a crew member in there. So what are we talking about? The minerals. So you roll the dice, you grab that many minerals, you can load them on your ship if you like. You don't have to. If you happen to roll doubles, you get, I think in addition, but maybe instead, a jewel, which is the highest valued of the legal goods. These are legal goods. This is sludge, the value that you're going to be paid for sludge, and this is the black market goods, the grog. Another option is to mine the clouds. Anywhere you are, you can roll a die and you get that much phlogiston. No, you roll 2 times. What? I think you just roll 1 die. Damned if I remember. Yeah, I just played it, but I'm not someone who likes to remember all the rolls. Yeah, you roll 1 die, and you get that much phlogiston. And remember, that's what you spend for movement. If you're at the phlogiston geyser, which is this green thing, you get to roll 2 dice worth of phlogiston. And there's an errata on that. If you roll doubles, I think you fill up. Well, chances are you fill up anyway. The final thing you can do is attack another sky ship. And that also is kind of a complex situation, but I'm going to get to that before I go to the trading. When you attack another ship, and here's an errata that I am going to keep, is the core rules say The first thing that happens when you declare an attack is, I believe, you pick up a wanted marker if you're attacking someone who doesn't have a wanted marker. Then you can demand something from them. You can demand any amount of their money, crew members they have on board, sludge, or other goods that they have on board. I guess you have to have room for stuff you put on your ship. But if they give it to you, if they agree to it, that's great, and you can't attack them then. If they don't give it to you, then you can start fighting. And the way a combat round works is first you rally your crew. You pick a crew member, and the advanced rules allow you to pick as many as you like. I think I'm going to stick with the core rules here with everything. I don't want to change anything. Or the errata allow you to change. You pick a crew member, and that's some of them have a plus in damage. So for example, this guy adds 1 to your combat roll. This guy adds 3. These guys have other special abilities. This guy adds 2. This guy adds 3. What's special about this guy, though, why he's so cheap, is as soon as you use him, you discard him. And you can only use him in 1 combat round. It would be kind of cool if you only used him in 1 combat, because then you could just keep buying him whenever you're ready to go pirating. But you might need more than 1 crew member if you're planning on using this guy, because he gets 1 shot and that's it. So he's not really as valuable kind of as this guy. This guy kind of saves you for a turn. This guy saves you for 1 round of combat and that's it. So what happens is you each roll a die, you add your modifier, and the person who gets the highest die roll hits the other guy and does a damage to them. And they draw a damage card and inflict it on their hull. And you put it you roll a die to see which hull it hits, and it will hit a hull that doesn't have a damage on it already. So it moves over. Once all your hulls are damaged, your ship is sunk, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You might have to also do this kind of combat against ill wind cards. They might make demands on you as well, and in which case you have this chance to respond or just fight them. After 1 round of combat, then the attacker has the option to leave the battle, or he can make new demands due to the changing situation. He could, increase, decrease, whatever, to see if he gets something, to see if somebody will buy him off at that point. All right, if you happen to smash someone completely, then they start the game over, essentially. All the stuff on their ship is gone. Now their place here is left alone. They get to keep that. But they start with a new ship with whatever materials you start the ship with, which is a crew member and some cash. And I think probably at a random location. Doesn't specify that. However, you get half the gold that you had in hand. If you had no gold, each opponent must give you 10 gold from their own funds. So you either want to have a good hefty amount of gold on hand or nothing, because if you have nothing, at least your opponents will be funding you. Now again, the errata has added an additional problem with this, which is if you were wanted when you were taken down, you're not going to get any charity out of that. You're not going to get insurance or charity out of that. Makes sense, but again, I'm not going to start adding some of the stuff from the errata and not all of it, and I'm not willing to mark up the cards. Okay. Let's go to the trading. So trading has a whole list of things: buy, sell cargo, buy, sell phlogiston, hire fire crew, load sludge, organize cargo, repair damage, and upgrade hulls. Most of this, and you can do this kind of in any order you like at any time, so you can during the trading. So you could sell some goods, get the money for that, buy some other stuff, whatever. So, these cards have a price on them. If you buy them, you pay that price. If you want to sell them back to the bank, you get half the value back. Goods, you buy and sell at whatever price they're at here. And we'll get to how that changes in a little bit. Same thing with black market goods. But here's the thing. You can only buy goods at a specific town. So there's one city that's going to create the minerals. There's an exception to that. There's a special dual city where you don't know what materials you can buy. You roll 2 dice, and those are the 2 materials that are available at that town. You can sell goods at any town where they're not available. But note, you're buying and selling at the same price, right? So if I bought minerals someplace, and the price doesn't change, I'll be selling them at that same price. But the price is going to change. It's going to fluctuate, and obviously buying low and selling high is your goal. However, because it's a trading game, you don't want to be sitting on goods for a long time. So you have to see, it's where the commodities prices change. This game gets kind of interesting. The final thing that you can kind of do is repairing damage, you pay the amount for the damage. Building an upgraded hull, you pay it, whatever. The final thing is you can take sludge on board. You can fill your holds with sludge, 2 barrels per hold normally, or with the other. You can carry 1 barrel with sludge, with really 1 barrel of sludge in a hold with really no risk. But if you have 2 or more, almost no risk. If you have 2 or more sludge in a hold, you're taking a risk. There are cards that'll infect your ship and destroy and damage the hold there. The price on sludge is how much money you get from picking it up from a city. And you can dump it at the end of a turn in any kind of location. One reason they changed the minerals rule, I think, is so that people can dump sludge and pick up minerals. But I kind of like that you can't do both of those. I guess with the other things it kind of works out nicely, but we'll see. I am fine with the way it is. Because during your normal turn, you're allowed to dump cargo and crew, including sludge, and then, say, mine the clouds or collect minerals. Well, you can still mine the clouds, but that's not that big a value. Collecting minerals is probably more valuable. Okay, but we're only going to allow that at cities as the original rules said. Generally, if you're picking up sludge, you want to bring it to the volcano and dump it. If you just drop it off in a city, you're going to be wanted, and that's going to cost you. Speaking of those wanted tokens, they're hard to get rid of. You have to wait until, a trade day comes? You get 50 gold pieces for each wanted token the wanted pirate holds. So somebody who's a criminal, you get cash for if you destroy their ship. Okay. And I can see why you'd want to remove the insurance and charity from a criminal, because it doesn't make sense that would be able to be insured. But whatever. I don't want to play with any of the... a game that gets this produced, you'd think that they would have run it through people who could come up with those kind of objections already. All right. Now the next stage is after everybody takes a turn, we go to this guild council stage. And what's going to happen there is first you have a timed amount of time, and it's supposed to be 2 minutes. We're obviously not going to do that solitaire. We're going to do some die rolling and stuff like that for collusion. To discuss what you're going to do. But the first thing you do is each player rolls their 3 dice, their 3 colored dice. And that's going to indicate which commodities they can screw around with. Now in the 2-player game, this changes significantly. Each player rolls a set of dice and assigns them to the negative side, and then a set of dice that they assign, that they'll be able to assign by agreement. But anyway, after you roll your dice, you have 2 minutes to cut deals. none of these are binding, but you can basically offer gold, goods, crew cards in exchange, and dice placements in exchange for agreements of where to put the dice. So I could go to you and say, look, I'll give you 5 gold if you put that 5 die over in the positive side during your chance to put place. In the event that any player rolls triples, the number that they rolled on the legal goods is going to jump up 3 spaces immediately. Okay. Then, starting with the first player and going around, each player gets to place their dice on the numbers that they rolled. This is not a requirement. Yeah, it says can. So you can place, this is a 3, it would go on the number 3, the textiles. You can place it in the negative box or the positive box, and you can't go over the number of dice here. Again, the errata changes that in particular so that players can use their dice to influence the sludge and black market, even though they don't want to influence the price of the particular commodity in the direction that they're trying. I say the hell with that. Leave that little, why give them that any extra power? So after everybody's placed all their dice that they wish to place, and you go around in order doing this, then we're going to see what the effect is. And the effect is going to be as follows. The first thing we're going to worry about actually is, because of the ease of handling things more than anything else, is the black market. The number of dice in the negative side will be drifts to the left. The number of dice on the positive side for all commodities will be drifts to the right. If one exceeds the other, this marker is going to move that many spaces in that direction. Now, there's a general rule in this game. Whenever something's moving off the track, it's bouncing off. So let's say I ended up with just 3 dice over here on the negative side. This would be getting a -3 to it. So it would bounce off this side with 3 and go 3 to the positive. That ends up not being as random as it seems, at least if you're the last player. If you're the first player, you have no real control over the market, except maybe with some deals that you might be able to make. But the later and later you go in the market, the more power you have over it. Then we're going to go to the sludge, and that's going to move 1 space, either to the negative or positive, whichever one has more dice. And then for each good, we're going to do the same thing for the number of dice that that good has. So for example, say we had this, legal because 2 is allowed in each. There would be 1 negative and 2 positive, so this would move up 1, and then we can clear the dice off here because we've already taken care of these 2 spaces. The bouncing still works here, and that's about it. With the errata, again, you can put extra dice into the negative or positive side above the original, but only 2 of them count on each side. So you're not going to see as much fluctuation on the higher valued goods. Black market, though, is an extremely volatile market with decent rates of return. Higher value than some of the more volatile markets there. Okay, the next thing, and this was removed from the game, is the first player rolls 2 dice. One is going to be for a shortage, one is going to be for a surplus. The shortage will drive the price of that commodity up 1 space. The surplus will drive it down a space, and still the bouncing takes effect. So if you're here, well, that goes up. That's all very kind of weird when you're playing it out. Then the final thing in this point is you can purchase guild influence, and you pay money equal to the color of the box that you're advancing into. So at $5 each, it's going to take $140 to get yourself through the blue section. Now this is money you could use for investment, but what's cool about this money is it's in the bank. No one can take it from you. Which is to say that you don't really want a lot of money hanging around on your ship, or someone will go pirating on you. If you've got a lot of money and you're going early in the turn, you can almost guarantee somebody might shoot you down if they've got better gunners and such not than you do. Well, better fighters than you do. So that's kind of an interesting possibility. But someone has to kind of take a turn trading to set up their ship to be a pirate ship. Obviously, there's a baseline to all that, which is to say you start the game with a dude who gives you +1 to your combat. Well, if you sell that dude, now everybody has a +1 on every round against you. That sounds, unless they get their hold hit with that dude in it. That sounds kind of dangerous. Now, only the attacker gets to choose when the combat ends. So you can't turn a combat around. I mean, if the attacker starts to lose, he may well just break it off, and the defender isn't going to have a choice to, say, pursue again. So anyway, the baseline I'm talking about is probably each person is, the group's going to come to some kind of general decision of how much of your ship is going to be set up for armaments just for normal practice. You know, if everybody's got a lot of weapons on board, or a lot of fighting crew members on board, it becomes very risky to not be close to that because, well, they might attack you just on a whim, basically. You know, they don't have to plan for that because you're so much weaker than they are. But, of course, you only get to use one fighting member of each. And there's a limited number, so there's only 2 of these +3 every time guys, and they're pretty potent. Anyway. The game goes until somebody reaches here. Once somebody does, the round continues, and then the person with the most influence wins. This is influence purchasing happens pretty much at the end of a round, so it all pretty much probably comes down to the first person who reaches there. But if you can buy more, I guess you get higher. I don't know. This is kind of oddly stated. The player with the highest influence total wins the game, but if 2 or more players reach 50 influence, each tied player adds the value of all their goods to their gold pieces on hand, and then the highest total of that among the tied players. So it seems to me that 50 is the highest you can get, and then you want to have cash on hand and good value aboard your ship. And then the next high value is your crew cards, and, well, then it goes to a share. You can't declare the game a victory, though, or you can't declare it over if you have any sludge on your ship. So you could reach the 50 but be carrying sludge, and, well, you've got to deal with that before. Of course, you could have dumped the sludge in a city even and taken a penalty if that was the case. But you might not know that you're going to be able to buy your way all the way up. I don't know. I'm not sure, because you're going to have enough money that it will be clear that you can. All right, let's send this one up, and I'll continue with the setup and such not, and we'll start playing.